Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Someday with me, Jay Barsky. I'm happy that you are listening to this podcast. I am just happy that this podcast is growing as listenership is growing and I'm promoting everything. I'm just feeling good on developing these podcasts, especially these solo podcasts, because it just allows me to develop as a podcaster and a motivational speaker. So it allows me to just get into a deeper side of my creativity. I know it's been a while since the last podcast, which was August 2nd, was the last solo podcast. There was a lot of positive feedback on that podcast episode, which I'm happy about. Just friends using the word manifestation, which is awesome. So the solo podcasts are actually the most popular episodes that I have. And even though I love doing the interviews, I love having different guests on to have talking about everything from comedy or other topics of interest. The solo podcast, it takes some time for me to just put into kind of an outline of what I want to talk about. I was afraid that not too much people would be interested in just the solo podcast and more of the interviews, since that's what I kind of had most experience with the previous podcast I had. But it ended up being the opposite. So now I'm happy that, people like the interviews. It's awesome and stuff. And it allows me just to get more open as a podcaster. But the solo podcasts kind of allow me to get more creative into my more inner thoughts and just challenge me to kind of just be more independent with my thoughts and not kind of get outside influences. And this is just like distractions like music, listen to other podcasts, and just some alone time and get into my thoughts of what I want to mention, what I want to talk about. A little bit of what's been going on with me since the solo podcast that I posted. I did post some interviews and I was working on some comedy and stuff, but I kind of want to just focus on me, some self-care, just kind of get outside of being an artist. Even I have burnout sometimes. I get motivated to do these podcasts. I get motivated to make people laugh. I just get more motivated to know that I'm helping people grow and feel better about themselves and inspire them to doing great things themselves. So I just needed some alone time, just focus on me and my inner thoughts, and kind of just want to just listen to the environment. Just a lot of beach walks, just being more or outdoors. I just want to hear what's outside, and just like I was thinking about my interview with Coley. I do some self-reflections on previous interviews, and when I had Coley on the podcast about just listening to like the environment and just what the birds, the air, the wind, if you're near the ocean, the lake, just all things around you. And I kind of just want to gather all my thoughts and listen to all of that. So that's what I've been just doing a lot, just self-reflection. I'm always learning. I'm never going to stop learning. And so that allowed a lot of time just staying away from my phone. I kind of now just separated from myself, not listen to any Bluetooth. Again, just avoiding those outside influences. I did post 2 interviews since the solo podcast. Those 2 interviews were scheduled around the same time. I just kind of had a really motivational couple of weeks to kind of just get that art out there, which is why you probably noticed that it was after the Robert Mack interview instead of waiting for another month for something to be posted. A week after, I had the interview with Roosevelt Mercier. I thought that was just a kind of a cool thing that I could just post out for that month. And then this solo podcast I can post for the month of October. As I was kind of just on my own thoughts and my self-reflection on things that I kind of was inspired to do something different besides a podcast and doing comedy. I kind of wanted to just get deeper into my art as a motivational speaker. And it's something I kind of wanted to admire someone by the name of Earl Nightingale. He's had albums, and this is coming back to the probably 1950s or around that time, in which it's spoken word, just talking about positive things to inspire you, just positive affirmations, which is a lot what I listen to just going to sleep. Then there are live albums, so this is something like you don't see too much of as well, but a popular one that I see is Les Brown, and he has a lot of motivational albums that are all live albums. but he's a loud person, very strong speaker. So I would like to think like you can probably listen to the Earl Nightingale when you go to sleep. And then when you wake up in the day, you can listen to Les Brown because he kind of just pushes you to like just take on the day. Like whatever's going to come your way, you just take it on. So I was just reflecting on those speakers and kind of just want to figure out myself as a motivational speaker. Want to get away as being a comedian, get away as being a podcaster, and I just wanted to get more. I want to grow as a motivational speaker. So that's how I came out with the Someday EP. So this is just a 3-track album that I came out with. I just edited a couple of the, I think the more inspiring podcasts from a couple of the solo episodes from the podcast. And so there's an introduction on the motivational EP along with 2 tracks. So on the second track, it's Let That Ego Go, which is just what I kind of did is just grab the heart of those 2 solo podcasts of just what I'm talking about, kind of cut down some of the parts that kind of is just a little journey away to the point of providing examples. And I just want to just re-edit it, cut it down to just a couple of minutes, just to the heart and soul of those solo podcasts to come down to those tracks. So that's why you see in the second track, it's Let That Ego Go, along with the third track, which Manifesta, which is the most popular track going streaming right now. It's over like 4 minutes long. So the motivational EP is something that people can listen to if they go to sleep or want to wake up to the day. It's pretty like 8-9 minutes long. I'm really proud of that album. It didn't take me too long to cut down to it. It was something that I've always wanted to try out myself. And I'm well versed into editing the audio for these solo podcasts now that I can now work on those on the motivational EP. So that's my goal kind of in the future, that I kind of can work with the blend of being a motivational speaker and a podcaster, is that I can grab those solo podcasts and I have just go down to the message of those podcasts and condense it down to a couple of minutes of a track that I can put for the motivational future albums. Just wanted to start something small. That's just my goal right now. Just start something small, something new, something different, something that's never been seen before. I just want to go somewhere outside the box. That's always where I felt that I belonged. I got a chance to finally jump back into stand-up. And it kind of just allowed me to do crowd work, which is always something I've always been fearful in starting my journey as a stand-up comedian. And it just comes to a point that I've been comfortable with my material that I haven't memorized. Now I can kind of jump into the crowd, and then whether or not it goes well, I can just jump back into my material that I know can save me if I'm bombing with the crowd, that is. I was at a point where I really felt like I probably can't write another new 5, new 10. I'm going to have cycles like that I can't feel. And it's normal that I can't feel like I'm going to write this awesome joke that I can't outright it. And I have something challenging, something deeper I want to talk about. And then I realized it's about just being confident into your material, that it's normal, that's why it's kind of just challenged myself as a joke writer to just make something funny and try to make it more funny than my previous material. Whether or not it doesn't, as long as it comes out funny, that's amazing. And if I can at some point laugh during my material too, I never really felt that I've been a funny person all my life. And then ever since I started doing stand-up, I kind of just say things that made me laugh myself, which is nice when I can say something out loud on my own and then I'm just laugh at it, and it's healthy because I'm just using it for my art. So this episode is titled No Fear, and I call it No Fear because you should have no fear when it comes to achieving your someday. I was reflecting on an interview with Olin Whiteley that I had a while back, and I was just talking to him at one point about the anxiety I build up for myself because of the fear that I have of going to these new places and just performing, of places I've never been to, just being exposed to different people of different backgrounds. And he mentioned that it should be exciting, which it is. The most exciting part is the aftermath of overcoming that fear. And then you realize that there really wasn't anything to fear at all, that fear is kind of a mindset to you. is just a barrier in order to try to prevent you achieving your dreams, because that's obviously going to happen. No matter what you do, no matter how many great things you accomplish, there's always going to be some kind of new challenge, especially as you grow and you develop. If you are going to be repetitive and do the same thing over again, you're going to come across the same challenges. But as you grow and try unique different things to help you grow and develop as a person, you're going to come across different issues to challenge you to help you grow. I've always had in the back of my mind of an interest to doing stand-up. It wasn't something that I've always saw myself in just doing, always just trying it out. I never really saw myself actually getting into the craft myself. I was always interested in just kind of just doing once or twice, just kind of knock it out, just saying I tried it, never really thinking that I would enjoy doing it. And I would say a couple of things that kind of really prevented me to just even knocking it out was just having my own insecurities and my own fears of what outcomes would happen if I do my stand-up. I think when you are exposed to a lot of people and then you have the spotlight on you of just my own insecurities of just not really thinking that I was funny myself. I just knew I was always in my head just a little goofy in my comedy in myself. But it was always just to me. I never really just did it out loud. My family and I've always just kind of really entertained my family with just, they always thought I was funny, but they know me. And it's not my funny side is not something I really reveal to a lot of people. I really never thought I was that funny at all. And I would say that something that really, I was deathly afraid of just doing stand-up alone is hecklers. Heckling, I wouldn't know as myself. I just didn't know myself as a person, how to handle a heckler. Like if someone just yells at me, probably says mean things to me, before I can even get a word out, I just wouldn't know what to do. And as I just got into comedy and just started watching other people, how they are manage hecklers. So a lot of comedians have different ways of addressing a heckler. And the thing is, I get heckled often, and I never take it heckling as a negative. People call out to me during my stand-up. I would say that people get comfortable talking to me, whether it's in person or when in doing my stand-up, that it's really challenging for me to tell everybody to stop talking to me when I have a number of people from different sides of the crowd actually talking to me, from having one person maybe saying some negative things to another person who's just kind of complimenting me out loud in public. So I kind of sometimes have to handle multiple hecklers, which I wouldn't even really sometimes would call it heckling. Sometimes it's just people that want to engage or talk to me. But sometimes every once in a while, I'll have some heckling. I kind of now just kind of orchestrate it into my favor when it happens. One thing that really helps when I am approached with situations like this is to show that I'm not bothered, to show that I am here. I'm a confident person, that you're not my first heckler, you're not going to be my last heckler. I've handled hecklers before, to the point now, I'd say I've been crossed to this situation so many times now, I can orchestrate it into my favor, into my stand-up, and it comes out to a bigger laugh than I actually get into my own material. I don't get bothered by when people engage or talk to me. Sometimes it's just people who want my attention or want to talk to me. I always will consider myself more of a fan of stand-up rather than an actual stand-up comedian myself. Anyone that knows me in the comedy scene knows that I just like going to the shows. I mostly just go to shows more than I do the stand-up. Sometimes if there's stand-up around or available, then I'll do it. But I just enjoy doing the shows. Now I usually just sit in the back, but even myself, I want to engage. I want to talk to the person. I went to an Adam Ray show and I sat up front, and he does a lot of crowd work. And even I was talking to him. He even pointed out my shirt, which was like full of flowers, and he was mentioning something about I'm so Florida because of the shirt, which is true. But even I want to talk to them, and I have to prevent myself in doing that when I go to just shows, local shows, or just open mics, because I still want to talk to the people. I look at myself a fan whenever I just go to anywhere that has a comedy scene. I don't really look at myself as a comic. I look at myself just a fan of the material. I just enjoy just being a watcher of the craft. I just enjoy being a student. I will forever be a student of not just comedy, but of life. That's why I'm more of a watcher of everything rather than an engager. Of course, I like to engage and get up there and do the craft myself. But I rather just sit back and relax, watch, maybe have a drink or eat something, and just enjoy a good show. Depending on what the environment, I don't typically hear what people are saying when they are talking to me, but I will take it as a positive feedback because what will happen is when they talk to me, I just laugh it off. Laughing is contagious. Once people see that I'm laughing and I'm not bothered by what's being said, it just makes other people comfortable around that environment. The point to all of this is that was always fear. It was always just fear that was bothering me. It wasn't the actual heckling. It was just something that I developed in my mind, a scene that was going to develop in my mind that I did not know how to address it. It's something that I feared that myself as an adult in how to handle a challenging situation like that. And now it's come to the point that it's happened multiple times and it's always happened into my favor. Fear comes into different forms. It comes to different shapes. It will always change. It's always going to come. It's normal to be fearful of different things when you are trying something new, something that you're not used to. It's okay to have that fear. What's not okay is to have that fear impact you in a negative way. I don't know anybody that says they don't fear anything when they start something new. Because what fear can do is lead to other negative avenues in your life. I know I quoted Yoda back then, and I kind of want to just paraphrase. I don't want to quote exactly what he said in the episode, but I kind of just want to paraphrase something that he said about what fear actually leads to. Fear leads to hate. It leads to anger, and eventually it leads you to a deeper dark side. You should be using that fear as a tool to motivate you, not to impact you in a negative way. Like I said, everyone has that fear. It's what you do with that fear is going to help you grow. You can't use that fear to put you down. You need to use that fear in a positive way to challenge yourself mentally to switch up that fear into something that works out in your favor. You shouldn't show that fear bothers you. Again, fear comes into different forms that will come to you. Sometimes you just need to ignore that fear. Sometimes you just need to ignore that vessel of fear that is trying to prevent you in achieving your goals. You should show fear that it doesn't bother you, that you have a strong armor around you, that anything fearful that comes your way is just reflected off the armor that you're wearing. That fear can cause you negative harms in your body. Every time one gets fearful of something mentally, it will cause certain reactions to the body, whether it's sweating or just something different reactions physically, maybe causing you to start biting your nails. Just little small things like that will start impacting your body in a negative way to kind of steer you into the direction that the fear wants you to go to. One thing I could recommend to help you overcoming those challenges, that those vessels of fear that come your way, is to prepare for anything that may come your way. Be your own hype person. If you see that fear coming, you know that it's going to come, then prepare for it. Hype yourself to it. Hype yourself to prepare for that challenge that will come your way because you know that you can overcome those challenges. You should look at fear as just another small battle for you to help prepare you to grow to those bigger things as you grow as a person, as you become more successful in life. So you may come across those repetitive challenges as you grow, and you can overcome those challenges quicker to the point that they will stop happening. There's a difference between fear versus anxiety. In an article by the National Illness on Mental Illness, fear is a feeling we have that prepares for the body. Anxiety is our reaction to our emotions in the environment. So are those from the outcomes of our fear. So fear is just that state of mind that kind of prepares us to what the outcome might be. The anxiety is happening once we are in the environment of that fear. So one comes after the other. What's important to know is that you knew that was going to happen, that you knew that fear was going to happen, that you knew that anxiety might happen as well. What you also should know is that you can overcome those things. That's what you have that confidence in you. You can't prevent fear. Fear, I mentioned, fear is always going to come. I would say I'm confident in my craft and my material, but even I have my days where I am fearful of my challenges, of challenges that I have in my comedy and my podcasting and just in the material as I grow in my art. I have my own fears that I have writer's block. I can't write another thing. Maybe something personal is kind of preventing me to work on my craft. So even I have my times where I'm fearful of just maybe that's it, that I am not growing in my potential in my podcasting or as a comedian. But then I remind myself that this is just a cycle. I have moments where I'm like this. I have these moments of experiences, and then I overcome those experiences by writing something better, by doing something that inspires somebody to achieving their someday. And I go back to just being confident in yourself, in your craft, and whatever you do, anything that comes your way, it's okay to be fearful of what different things that might challenges that might come your way. But that confidence in you is that suit of armor that is preventing that fear to bother you and that you can overcome it and do whatever you want to do. So that's what all I want to talk about in this episode. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about having no fear and how it challenges just as an individual to motivate people and grow. Maybe this or something I'll probably talk about in the future. I'm always welcome to people engaging with me through comments or just messaging me about like questions about anything about the previous episodes that I discussed or want to get dived into further about things that I'm discussing on these solo podcasts, which is cool. But now for the outro of this episode. So something I want to advise in this episode in helping you motivate and grow is just to drink more water. This is kind of just general advice. I'm not saying this is clinical advice. This is just general advice that it's important to drink water. That's kind of common knowledge, but I think a lot of people don't realize that they're not drinking enough water that they should. If you ever think that you're not drinking enough water, that you didn't drink enough water for that day, you're most likely right. Because if you're well quenched on water, you probably don't need to drink more water. An article by the Harvard Health, it mentions that the benefits of drinking water is just flushing bacteria from the system, normalizing blood pressure, and maintaining electrolyte balance. And some things that can result from dehydration is just confusion, weakness, and just having low blood pressure. These are all tools that impact you to make you grow and to become the successful, happy person that you are. Your blood pressure has an impact on ways that you are thinking, your electrolyte balance. You could be tired, so sometimes your reactions to certain challenges that are coming your way may be impacted. So just being well quenched with water helps on all of that. The average intake for water is about 4 to 6 cups. I myself, I would say I'm average weight and height for a male at my age. The minimum that I probably drink is the equivalent of 6 cups. So sometimes that could include like things that I eat, but I naturally just, outside of what I eat, the water that's actually in my food, I actually just have that equivalent of 6 cups. Usually I consume my water. I have a jug, but if I'm home, I will just put my water in a mug and that's the equivalent about a cup or two and kind of just in a coffee mug. And that's kind of what I throughout the day. If I go out, then I'll have my water bottles. I would say a typical water bottle is about 2 cups of water. A whole gallon of water, you'll see a lot of people that are more physically active just carrying a gallon of water, which is good to have if you're someone that's really physically active. I would say on a typical average day, if you're not doing anything, then that average consumption of water is good. But if you're more physically active, like during my different physical activities, even I consume more water than I do naturally. And depending on what I do, sometimes I would include going through a gallon of water. I typically just drink through a filtered water. I'm not able to afford fresh bottled water. I would say that's more of a luxury for me rather than a need. I'm comfortable just having filtered water and just keep refilling and restocking that whenever I need it. That's typically the water that I drink. I'm not recommending any filters or different bottles of water, but water is something that I think during my experience when I lived in the Fiji Islands, that I would say water was something that I never realized how much I took for granted until I lived the more village lifestyle. And just there was to being exposed to the spring water was great to have, but there were days, sometimes weeks on end, that we would go without water because the kind of if there was a hurricane or just some rain or some heavy rain, that the pipes would get stocked up and that we wouldn't have running water. So we would go, like I said, days or weeks just going out without water. So it was just very hard to kind of gather water, whether it's through the rain or just through the lake. So I had to really learn how to ration a lot of my water, sometimes recycling the same water to use to different things as well. It was a little difficult, but just that experience just really made me appreciate the use of just everything that water provides for us, and that I am greatly appreciated. I just appreciate. I'm always happy when knowing that I filled my quota drinking at least 6 cups of water. I strive for drinking more, but if I can get to that 6 cup average, I'm a happy person that day. So I think I mentioned everything that I wanted to mention on this podcast. I think this was a great episode. I think I discussed a lot of great things to help you grow as an individual, to help you achieving your someday, because you are going to achieve it if you have not achieved it yet. I know you can do it. You know you can do it. So just do it. But thank you for listening to Someday with Jay Barsky. I hope you took a lot from this episode, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.